100 years ago, Okanagan men were eagerly enlisting in the Army to go overseas and fight in the First World War. Of course, at this time of year, early November, we are thinking about those soldiers as Remembrance Day nears. And today on Go, we are here at the Okanagan Military Museum, where they have an ongoing display commemorating and explaining what the history of World War I was all about. We'll be checking that out coming up on today's show. Now we're talking to Keith Bomer, an interpreter here at the Military Museum. And you guys have had an ongoing exhibit dealing with World War I. Of course, it's 100 years later.
Yeah, the centennial exhibits, you can't cram the whole story into one anniversary exhibit. So we broke it out into several parts. So last year we did the Bugle Sounds, which was talking about the enthusiastic recruiting of Okanagan men for service. Then we followed up with the Glory Passes, where those same men are now getting into the trenches and experiencing what war is all about. So the shine comes off of a little bit of the patriotism, a little bit of the mythology of combat.
That's really cool, because you've got, around the corner here, you've got sort of some displays that show a slight hint of what life was like in the trenches.
So we've designed an exhibit here to discuss what life was like in the trenches, give a little bit of a taste of what the environment was like. And it was very brutal. You're dealing with the weather, you're dealing with the enemy munitions, you're dealing with shortage of sleep, you're not getting as much fresh water as you would in a camp, or a training camp or a training center. And your food is not necessarily hot or very tasty.
And it's hard to imagine today, but these were like big ditches dug into the mud, and all the soldiers lived in like hollowed out spots and dugouts in there.
That's right. There was a huge matrix of trenches that were hand dug by infantrymen as well as laborers that were brought in later on in the war, especially for that sort of work. And they would create underground chambers called dugouts that they could take refuge in and get out of the weather a little bit, and also some other ones like this funk hole here.
This is like a little scraped out on the side of the wall of the
That's
trench.
right. It's scraped out of the side of a trench so that a guy who was out working the night before could crawl in there and curl up and try and get some sleep during the day without being tromped on by the guys that are doing their day work.
Of course, Remembrance Day is upon us, and you guys at the museum here have a lot going on during the month of November to help commemorate the end of the First World War and how that led into Remembrance Day.
That's right, because a lot of the traditions that we use today in our ceremonies and so on came out of the end of the First World War as a way of honoring those who had fallen and try and make some sense out of the very confusing affairs of the days. So what we've got planned, and again this year we're open house after 11 o'clock, so we encourage people to go to the ceremonies and then come down here and explore our galleries. We have a lecture series that is held here in the front gallery of the OMM, and our next speaker is Dr. Jim Woods from Okanagan College, who will be talking about the Battle of Ypres in 1914, followed up by Associate Dean Nancy Holmes from UBC talking about the poem Flanders Fields. And then Professor Howard Hisdahl will finish up on the 24th with the final lecture about what the Okanagan men in the 2nd CMRs, 2nd Canadian Mounted Rifles, were doing at this time of year 100 years ago.
So also there is a traveling play that's coming that's actually based on letters home from real Canadian soldiers.
That's right. The Royal BC Museum has sponsored this play called The Call Went Out, and it'll be a one-time showing at the Laurel Packing House on Wednesday the 18th, and more information can be found on our website at kelownamuseums.ca.
You can find all the information about the lecture series and everything that's going on down here on that website. So thank you very much for taking the time to show us. I think this is a great opportunity to really get a feeling for what local people went through 100 years ago in the Great War.
That's right.
That's just about it for us today. We'd like to thank the folks here at the Military Museum for showing us around. Don't forget, November 11th is Remembrance Day, and Shaw TV will be carrying the services from Kelowna City Park live. We will also be taping services up and down the valley and playing them back in the go time slot. If you're watching this show after November 11th, don't forget you can always come down here to the Military Museum. They have this ongoing World War I display that's following the progress of the war, updated annually, and all kinds of lectures and other things that are going on. That's it for the show. I'm Doug Brown. See you next time on Go.